In this video, we'll be looking at how Adolf Hitler consolidated his power and how Germany turned from a democracy into a dictatorship. So where we left off in the last video, in January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed the Chancellor of Germany by President Hindenburg. If you remember, this happened after a lot of backroom dealings by conservative politicians who believed that they could control Hitler, but they had no idea of what was about to come. However, Hitler did not have complete power just yet. The Nazis only had two other Nazi ministers in the government, and Germany was still governed by the Weimar Constitution. This meant that laws were meant to be approved by the Reichstag, and the Nazis only held about 1/3 of seats in this parliament. So to strengthen their position, Hitler decided to call for new elections in March 1933, hoping to gain a majority. But just a week before the elections took place, the Reichstag building was set on fire. A young Dutch communist named Marinus van der Lubbe was caught on site with matches and a lighter and confessed. Now, historians still debate about whether he acted alone or whether the Nazis actually orchestrated the fire. But either way, it occurred at exactly the right time for Hitler. Hitler claimed that this was the start of a communist revolution and used this opportunity to purge his main rival, the communists. As a result, 4,000 communists were arrested and Hindenburg declared a state of emergency under Article 48. This allowed Hitler to rule by decree and suspend rights like freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. In the March elections, Hitler used his emergency powers to ban the communists from taking up their 81 seats. The Nazis also formed a coalition government with the nationalists to give Hitler his first majority in the Reichstag. This was the moment that Hitler had been waiting for. He now had enough support to change the Weimar Constitution. On the 23rd of March, the Reichstag met to vote on a new law called the Enabling Act. This act would allow Hitler to pass his own laws without the approval of the Reichstag, meaning that the Chancellor could rule on his own. But whilst the politicians were taking the votes, they were greeted with a highly intimidating atmosphere as SA soldiers surrounded the building and swastika banners filled the room, basically threatening the politicians, "Vote for us or else." The Enabling Act was passed with 444 votes to 94, with only the Social Democrats opposing it. This marked the end to democracy in Germany. Over the next few months, Hitler consolidated his power further by eliminating different opposition groups. Trade unions were still a threat as they were seen as leftist and communist and were capable of mass protests and strikes to threaten Nazi interests. So in May 1933, trade unions were banned. Their offices were taken over, leaders were arrested, and strikes were now made illegal. Then later in July, Hitler passed the law against the formation of new parties. By this point, Hitler had already targeted left-wing parties like the Communists or the Social Democrats, but now all other parties had been banned. Within only a week, all major parties of the Weimar Republic were formally disbanded, making Germany a one-party state under the Nazis. Hitler also wanted to centralize power by weakening local governments. Under the Weimar Republic, Germany had 17 different states, each with their own local parliaments, known as Landtags. These parliaments were in charge of services like education, policing, or the law courts. The Nazis wanted to destroy their independence, and in January 1934, the law on the reconstruction of the Reich was passed, abolishing these state parliaments and brought all their powers under Nazi control. At this stage, Hitler had removed most external opposition and turned Germany into a one-party state. However, he now faced a threat from within his own party. And this brings us to June 1934 and the Night of the Long Knives. Hitler's main rival was Ernst Röhm, leader of the Nazi paramilitary unit, the SA. Röhm was in the Nazi party from the start and had co-founded the SA in 1921, also taking part in the Beer Hall Putsch. But in 1925 he fell out with Hitler and fled the country for a few years. By 1930, at Hitler's request, Röhm returned to Germany and was reinstated as head of the SA. During the Great Depression, this was the perfect recruitment grounds for the SA, with millions of unemployed young men. The organisation had grown to over 3 million men and was loyal to Röhm. He even suggested for the SA to replace the traditional German army which was capped at 100,000 men because of the Treaty of Versailles. This alarmed the army generals, whose support Hitler needed to pursue his foreign policy goals in the future. Röhm also started to criticize Hitler's economic policies of working with wealthy industrialists and businessmen, as he favored more socialist policies such as taxing the rich. Hitler and Röhm were on a collision course, and leaders of the SS, such as Himmler and Heydrich, were more than willing to destroy a potential rival. So, on the 29th of June 1934, a meeting was organised for Röhm and 100 other SA leaders at a hotel in Bavaria. The SS stormed into the building, arresting, imprisoning, and shooting these men without a trial. Hitler also used the Night of the Long Knives to settle some old scores, killing former Chancellor Kurt von Schleicher and Nazi rival Gregor Strasser. The Night of the Long Knives was very popular with the army. The SA continued, but it was now firmly under Hitler's control, and he won the backing of the army generals, eventually leading to German rearmament and the Second World War. Soldiers would soon swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler personally, called the Hitler Oath, instead of to Germany. The Night of the Long Knives was also popular with the people. Although some didn't agree with the violent methods, many saw this as a necessary action against the thugs of the SA. It proved that Hitler was a leader willing to move against his own political party if it represented a threat to wider German society. Hitler was completely open about what he had done, and it now firmly established murder and terror as parts of what the Nazi government did. And the final event was the death of President Hindenburg in August 1934, aged 86. So Hitler took his presidential powers and slapped them together with his powers as Chancellor, and what do you get? The title of the Führer, the leader or guide of Germany. And so, the Weimar Republic had formally ended, and Hitler's Third Reich had begun. And that's how Germany turned from a democracy into a complete dictatorship within only 18 months. That's all for this video, and in the next one, we will see how the Nazis used fear and terror to control the people of Germany. See you then.